Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel today. The world watches in disbelief as events unfold that few ever thought possible. A chain reaction of political chaos, economic collapse, and power struggles has erupted across the Americas as reports confirm that Donald Trump has taken bold steps to assert control in Venezuela. The atmosphere is charged with tension, confusion, and a sense of unstoppable momentum. Building with every passing hour, the situation is both volatile and unpredictable, with sources from inside Caracas saying that local power structures have completely fractured. Eyewitness accounts describe columns of armed groups moving through the streets, displaying flags and emblems associated with pro-Trump movements, while remnants of the Venezuelan government struggle to maintain communication with their military units. The oil-rich zones near Maracaibo and the Orinoco Belt are now said to be under new management, driven by factions claiming allegiance to Trump, aligned American investors and private military contractors. This move has sent shockwaves through global markets as energy prices spike and foreign governments scramble to understand what is happening. The United Nations has called for an emergency session, but at this hour, no clear resolution is in sight in Washington. Reactions are divided, with some lawmakers calling the move a necessary act of strength to reclaim American influence, while others warn that it represents a dangerous escalation that could lead to regional instability. The Pentagon has not confirmed the presence of U.S. forces, but satellite images show increased movement of aircraft and ships near Venezuelan airspace and coastal regions. Defense analysts say the operation, if true, is unprecedented in modern American history as it bypasses traditional diplomatic channels and unfolds through networks loyal to Trump rather than official state structures. Meanwhile, in major American cities, another crisis is exploding into view as food stamp riots break out across the nation. What began as isolated protests in smaller towns has now spread to major metropolitan centers, including Los Angeles, New York, and Houston. Citizens, desperate for basic goods, are flooding supermarkets and distribution centers with videos showing chaotic scenes of people clashing over scarce supplies. Store owners are boarding up windows and security forces are stretched thin. The National Guard has been deployed in multiple states, but reports suggest they are overwhelmed by the sheer scale of unrest. Economic experts are warning that the collapse of public assistance programs is only the beginning, as inflation continues to surge. Wages have failed to keep up, and millions of Americans are unable to afford food, housing, or transportation. The sense of lawlessness grows with each passing day, and communities once considered stable now face daily uncertainty. Local police departments are struggling to enforce order while political leaders exchange blame on national television. The debate has shifted from who is responsible to whether the system itself can survive this level of pressure. Across social media, hashtags like Take Back America and New Revolution are trending. As millions express both anger and hope, some view the turmoil as the beginning of a national awakening, while others see it as the final collapse of the old order. Videos of protests, burning flags, and crowds chanting for change dominate feeds, with commentators warning that the United States may be entering a new phase of civil unrest, unseen in generations. The streets are filled with a strange energy, part fear, part defiance, and part exhaustion after years of division and economic decline internationally. The world reacts with mixed emotions. Some nations in Europe have expressed concern that the United States is spiraling out of control, while others quietly support the idea of strong American intervention in Latin America as a counterbalance to Chinese and Russian influence. Moscow has issued a sharp condemnation of any interference in Venezuela, warning of consequences if its allies are attacked. Beijing, meanwhile, remains cautious, calling for peace, but reinforcing its presence in the region through trade and covert diplomacy. The geopolitical chessboard is shifting faster than most experts can analyze. Back in the United States, communities are forming self-defense groups and neighborhood watches in response to the spreading Lawlessness, grocery stores, pharmacies, and gas stations are the new front lines of conflict as ordinary citizens compete for survival. The atmosphere feels surreal with images of empty shelves next to luxury cars and gated homes. The wealth divide has never been more visible. Economists describe this as a breakdown of confidence in both government and currency as bartering and local trade networks begin to replace formal systems. In some regions, in rural areas, reports of farmers refusing to ship goods to cities have added fuel to the crisis, citing security risks and unpaid government contracts. Highways are blocked by protesters demanding relief, while armed convoys patrol small towns, claiming to protect citizens from looters. The message from these groups is clear. If Washington cannot protect them, they will take matters into their own hands. Community radio stations broadcast calls for unity and resistance, but also warnings that violence could escalate further if solutions are not found. Soon, political analysts say this is the direct result of years of economic mismanagement and political polarization. What began as ideological division has now turned into open social fragmentation with no clear leadership capable of restoring order. The national mood is one of anger, confusion, and disbelief as people struggle to understand how quickly stability vanished. The once unthinkable scenario of widespread unrest and food insecurity in the world's richest country is now a daily reality. Trump's supporters view the chaos as proof that America has lost its way under weak leadership. They argue that his decisive actions in Venezuela represent the return of American strength and sovereignty, a move to reassert control over resources and re-establish dominance in the hemisphere. Rallies in Florida and Texas feature banners declaring, "Take back America and save the Republic," while opponents condemn these gatherings as dangerous and inflammatory, accusing Trump of fueling division and exploiting the crisis for political gain. As the nights grow longer and tensions rise, reports of clashes between rival groups have increased. The lines between protester, activist, and militia are blurring, with many fearing a descent into open conflict. Federal agencies are attempting to coordinate a response, but communication breakdowns and conflicting orders have made efforts inconsistent, and chaotic governors from multiple states have called for emergency powers to restore order. But disagreements with federal authorities have left jurisdictions paralyzed. Economic collapse looms large on the horizon. Banks are limiting withdrawals as panic spreads through financial markets. Investors are fleeing to safe havens like gold and digital currencies. While the stock market experiences wild fluctuations daily, small businesses continue to close. While unemployment spikes to record levels, families across the nation are forced to choose between paying rent or buying food. Humanitarian groups describe scenes reminiscent of third world crises, with long lines for aid distribution and growing despair. In the streets, a new kind of movement is emerging, one that rejects both traditional political parties and calls instead for direct community control. These grassroots groups are organizing food distribution networks, mutual aid programs, and defense patrols, often outside the law. While some hail this as a return to local empowerment, others warn that such movements can quickly turn radical without oversight or accountability. The delicate balance between survival and anarchy hangs by a thread. In South America, the consequences of Trump's Venezuela move are rapidly unfolding. Reports suggest that oil shipments are being rerouted to private American companies under new agreements signed under duress. Venezuelan officials have fled the country, while remaining military officers are negotiating with unknown intermediaries believed to represent American corporate interests. The people of Venezuela, once hopeful for reform, now face uncertainty as protests break out across Caracas, Maracaibo, and Valencia, with citizens demanding clarity on who controls their government. The international community is struggling to respond. Latin American nations are divided, some supporting the move as a step toward stability, while others denounce it as imperial aggression. The Organization of American States has called for mediation, but neither side appears willing to back down. The situation has created a new power vacuum across the continent, with opportunistic actors seeking influence wherever possible. Humanitarian agencies warn of an impending refugee crisis as thousands flee toward Colombia, Brazil, and the Caribbean islands in search of safety. Inside the United States, conspiracy theories flourish as official communication falters. Some claim the unrest is part of a coordinated plan to destabilize the country, while others believe it is the natural collapse of a system stretched too far by inequality and corruption. The truth may lie somewhere in between, as experts highlight how decades of political dysfunction and economic disparity created conditions ripe for breakdown. Every new broadcast brings another layer of confusion as misinformation spreads faster than verified news.